Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, the battle for Marawi continues.
Crumbling na yung center of gravity ng kalaban, wala na nagko-control sa mga tauhan nila doon.
President Rodrigo Duterte and the military saying victory is within reach.
I think it will be a matter of days. This before the end of the month, matatapos na.
A lawmaker now proposing a specialized fund to rebuild the war-torn city.
Clearly, may katulong ang Automotive group dun sa mga lokal, sa mga nakatira dun sa Marawi. Talagang naintindihan ko yung posisyon ng ating armed forces.
Also, what is the fate of the tax reform package now in the hands of senators? Will we be seeing increased prices in fuel, cars, and sweetened drinks? Senate Ways and Means and Local Government Committee Chairman Sonny Angara joins us live. And later, feast your eyes, Hello Kitty lovers, and say hello to this newly opened Hello Kitty Cafe in the country. Where can you find it? We'll reveal it on today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. President Rodrigo Duterte says that he will lift martial law in Mindanao if the military or the armed forces will say that it is safe to do so. It's been more than a month since the crisis in Marawi broke out, and the government is exerting all efforts in regaining full control of the strife-torn city. But winning the war doesn't end after getting rid of all the terrorists in the area. It also requires rehabilitating the damaged city and helping the residents rebuild their lives. Also, we'll talk about the fate of the proposed tax reforms 1 year after Mr. Duterte took office. Let's go straight to the source of the story. Senator Sonny Angara. Senator, good to finally have you on the show.
Thanks
Welcome.
for having me, Pinky. Thank you. I'd like to greet good morning to all our viewers.
Good morning, sir. Let's talk about the crisis in Marawi. What is your assessment of government's handling of the crisis?
Well, militarily, I think we're doing okay. We've pushed them back. And according to the president, we should be able to see an end to the military aspect of the conflict soon. But obviously, it's not the end of it, because we have to, number one, rebuild Marawi, and second, prevent something like this from happening again. How was there that confluence of support from the locals, and they say they were foreign fighters as well? So those things, maybe we should be seeing a greater military engagement in civilian activities going forward. Maybe preparation of the military for better engagement militarily late. It's the first type of urban warfare that we've fought, that we see in Iraq and other countries. No? So I talked to some of the soldiers, and they said maybe we need to retool a little bit.
You mentioned that already in the past, Senator. You said that maybe it's time for soldiers to engage in more urban warfare. How? And do we need the help of other countries to help our soldiers in modernizing and getting more equipped?
Probably, because the expertise is, we're not really known as a military supplier. So I think for technology, definitely we need that. And secondly, for intelligence, I think that's the trend now, is a greater sharing of intelligence. So I think our previous battles were like on the battlefield and in the marshes of Mindanao. But now it's in urban centers. So I think you need certain types of vehicles, certain types of guns that the soldiers were telling me. So obviously, let's leave that to the experts. No? But there's a need to rebuild. You're talking about anywhere from 250,000 to 350,000 people who were displaced. How do you get them back to normal? How do you get places like the hospitals, the schools rebuilt in the fastest amount of time? I mean, the government, it's not the first time the government is seeing this type of rebuild. We saw it after Yolanda. So hopefully we've learned our lessons and we can do it quickly.
And rebuilding, you are proposing this trust fund for Marawi called the Marawi Bangon Fund.
Marawi.
Can you tell us more about that?
Well, as I said, the president also said he would give 20 billion. So that's a good starting fund. And you also, in the budget, Pinky, there's 21 billion calamity fund. Hopefully that's not used up by the end of the year, and anything that's left there, yun ang mapunta sa Marawi.
Are you thinking of a particular person to help rebuild Marawi. For example, we had Senator Ping Lacson before heading the rehabilitation for Yolanda.
Right.
Do you have anyone in mind for this?
No, I think with people are already in place. I think the people heading our infrastructure agencies, I think they're capable of doing that.
What about martial law? It's still in effect in Mindanao. Is it time, you think, to lift martial law? If so, or if not, when should the president do this?
Well, that judgment, I would rely on the defense establishment, the AFP, and ask them what is the situation on the ground, what is the threat of terrorism, and then we would consider it. It's been 40 or so days, no? I think 42nd or 43rd day, Pinky. So we're approaching that point where we have to ask if there's an extension at 60 days, you know. And that's something that has to be debated jointly under the Constitution.
But do you feel that martial law in place right now is still the right thing?
I think so, given what we're seeing in Marawi and the movement of people back and forth. So things like curfews and checkpoints, they play a crucial role.
And still on the whole of Mindanao?
Yes, for now, I think. But the threat is obviously dissipating. And I was in Mindanao for the last 2 weeks. Pinky, I was in Cagayan de Oro, I was in Iligan, I was in Davao City. And you know, things are really proceeding as normal. It's not the martial law of the 70s where, you know, you're scared to go out of your house. No, it's a much milder and tamer martial law.
So the threat or the trauma of martial law in the past should not be thought of as the same martial law that is being implemented now?
Not at all. Not at all. Because there are, number one, there are a lot of safeguards in the Constitution. So in fact, I think martial law is kind of a misnomer. Because when you say martial law, people conjure up all these images from the 70s. And it may not be helping our image abroad.
Mm-hmm. There are bills pending in the Senate. Two of them you've discussed also in the past. I don't know exactly what they're called, but one talks about if you lose a family member, a soldier, a policeman, that there is this proposal to give the family at least 6 months of the soldier or the policeman's salary. And the other bill is about giving full scholarship to the children of those who died during a conflict. Can you tell us more about this? What is the status of those bills?
I think these bills are commendable, Pinky, because I visited the wakes of some of the soldiers who were killed in Marawi, and they were really the breadwinners. And some of them were single parents, in fact. Like one of the soldiers, his father was a soldier and had no money, had not left anything behind. So they usually get a package of a few $100,000. But these bills will provide 6 months of salary and scholarship. So it's a nice gesture, I think. And this is the sympathy is there right now. So it's a nice time to tackle these bills.
But what would be the sentiment, you think? Because, sir, what's happening is this is something that has been talked about, even scholarship. You even have the private sector coming in. You have, I think, the Heroes Foundation likewise looking into the scholarship of the children whose parents or father has died. Is this something you think that will see the light of day soon?
I think so. I think when we meet, if it's taken up, it depends on the committee, of course. The committees that it's referred to, whether it's civil service or finance, it will depend on the chairman there. The committees in the Senate are very chairman-driven. But I think the public sympathy is there. And I acknowledge what you've said. The private sector does a fantastic job in stepping up and helping these dependents. So maybe it's time for the government to also step up.
What about intel? Was there a failure in intelligence? That's why this happened in Marawi?
You know, I don't want to comment on something like that, Pinky, because it might, I don't want to say anything demoralizing to our armed forces right now because they're in the middle of a battle. But there'll be a time to analyze, to do a post-mortem on that. And,
but not now.
And perhaps we have to look at how we share intelligence when there's a turnover of an administration, when there are new officials. From what I'm hearing, some agencies, some people tend to be very protective of their intelligence. Maybe we have to look at how we deal with that going forward.
Meaning, that would obviously mean from one administration, for example, from a previous administration to this administration, there could be some officials in the past who may not be sharing what they knew.
Well, there's always there's always a change in personnel, I think, from administration to administration, and we don't know how much is actually turned over. So that's something we should look into.
But you said that you were hearing something.
Yes, yes, but I said this is not the time to do the post-mortem. It's too early. So we'll talk. There'll be a time to talk about that.
Is this something you want to discuss in the Senate?
To strengthen the capacity of the armed forces, whether it's intelligence or actual capacities on the ground, definitely.
All right. You're on a break. Well, you will be back in the Senate when exactly?
I think it's 24th or 25th.
July 24 or July 25. But the public needs to know that you've been having hearings prior to you going back to the Senate. You are the chairman of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, also of the local government. You have in your possession the bill emanating from the House of Representatives, which discusses the tax reform package.
Yes.
What is the sentiment of the senators since now any tax reform package or any tax reform should emanate from the House of Representatives to begin with, and then it's transmitted to the Senate? What is the fate of that particular tax reform package? And it's the first out of 4, sir.
That's right. I think there's 4 or 5 planned by the government, and this is the first. And it's quite comprehensive, Pinky, in the sense that it covers things like taxes on oil, taxes on gasoline, taxes on automobiles, cars, and taxes on this thing called sugar-sweetened beverages. So we've had hearings on those 3 items: the petroleum products, the automobiles, and the sugar-sweetened beverages. So, I mean, as expected, each senator has his own unique viewpoint based on his experience, and they've been commenting. Like, for example, Senator Zubiri comes from Negros, which is a sugar-producing region, so he had something to say about the sugar-sweetened beverages.
And also of the automotive industry.
Also, automotive, you have the chairman of Energy, Senator Gatchalian, coming in with his own inputs based on his experience.
Okay, let me ask you this before we go into specifics. Are you happy with that tax reform package passed by the House of Representatives?
I'm looking at it carefully, because what we're doing is we're breaking down each aspect, and every week we're trying to have a hearing and trying to hear out trying to synthesize all the viewpoints.
Is there anything there that you're 100% supportive of?
Absolutely. The sentiment to do the income tax reform, that I think is long overdue. We have a 20-year-old income tax system, and people, maybe the cameramen, the BPOs, the teachers, the soldiers, they're earning not very much, but they're taxed 20-25%. Yun, kailangan mabago na yun.
You've always been that voice of wanting employees to have higher take-home pays. We're going to discuss that more after the break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come. Are you ready to pay more for sweetened beverages and fuel? We'll break down the proposed tax reform under the Duterte administration. And say hello to Hello Kitty. A cafe dedicated to the iconic character is now here in the country. That's for today's In Focus. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Sonny Angara. We're talking about the tax reform package, 100% support on the lowering of income tax returns. We'll have a graph on that, sir. So, very good. Because in the DOF website, you will see policemen, teachers. Now, they won't be having to pay taxes as long as you earn $250,000 and below.
Right.
Okay. And then it's gradual, sir. Over $250,000 to $400,000, you will have 20% of the excess over 250, and so on and so forth. Is this a perfect formula for you?
I feel like I'm an eye doctor, no?
Papalapit po natin.
No, I mean, Pinky, we've studied this, no? So There's a lot. Well, first of all, kudos to the DOF for pushing this, no? Because previous administrations were reluctant to do so. But maybe we have to study the numbers, because with this one, you're giving up 140 billion already, and that's 83% of those paying taxes. You're exempting them. So, I mean, I think they'll be happy with the tax cut, and they'll be overjoyed by not paying taxes, of course. Who wouldn't be, diba? Pero, like right now, someone earning 250,000 net income a year is paying 25%, and they want to bring him to zero. So that's a big jump.
Malaki
So we want to take a look at that. And the reason why we want to take a look at that, the details, is because it also affects the other side of the equation. How much are you going to raise to balance that?
Yeah.
And, you know, there are a lot of interests at stake. You want to help. Definitely, you want to help these people who are income earners. You're the 4 or 5 million, and but at the same time, you're thinking of the other 90 million Filipinos who will be shouldering the burden of the new taxes.
So what I'm understanding from you, Senator, is that you're looking at possibly lowering the tax exempt.
Balancing.
So the Senate version may have not a 250,000 and below, but a lower yearly income.
Well, we're still in the process of studying that, Pinky. What percentage of the population will be exempted? But definitely, what we can say unequivocally is that people will be paying lower taxes.
People will be paying
Yes.
lower taxes, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, frankly, sir, you're not too keen on this 250,000 and below tax exemption.
Well,
Is
that's
that
a
correct,
campaign
sir?
promise. You know, that's a campaign promise of the Duterte administration. That's why they're tied to that. But at the same time, we don't want to overburden our countrymen with such heavy new taxes, like the ones you mentioned on petroleum,
Yeah.
on sugar-sweetened beverages. We're studying those carefully.
So you're looking at adjusting that.
Yes.
That's safe to say.
Adjusting
So
both sides of the equation.
Yeah, so then let's say how to offset that is the DOF is saying, let's put taxes on petroleum, on sweetened beverages, on the automotive industry. Let's start with the excise tax on fuel, sir. What are your thoughts on this? Diesel is not taxed. Now they're looking at a tax of 3 pesos next year.
Yes.
And then
There's a 3-2-1 formula, Pinky. So
tell us more about that.
The original proposal was 6 pesos. So I think the House bargained for a phasing in a 3-2-1 for diesel, for gasoline. So we have to really study this, because, as we know, it will raise transport costs. It will also raise the cost of yung presyo ng mga bilihin, basically the cost of basic goods. No? So anything that's shipped basically from the province, yung food, among others, consumer products.
So let's stick to this, sir.
In fact, the DOF says it will raise inflation by at least 0.9 or 1%. So, you know, that's a bit risky, because we're already at 3% inflation. So we have to be careful there.
So if we're going to add, if you will allow the adding of 3 pesos on diesel and another, I think, is it another 2 pesos for unleaded gasoline just for the first year?
It's also 10 pesos. It's also 6 pesos. So 3-1 din sa gasolina.
So when you mean 3-1, that is 2018, 2019, and
Yes,
2020. So 3-1 for diesel and 3-1 for gas. Sir, the transport sector is already saying at a minimum fare of 8 pesos, we're going to increase that to 10 pesos.
That's right. And they're saying also yung jeepney drivers maiipit, because they pay a certain boundary. So yung iuwi nila, maiipit yun. And they're not going to be benefited by the income tax reform, because first of all, they're
already exempt.
Yeah, they're already exempt. So those are the things we have. Those are the kinds of things we have to balance going forward. And ironically, Pinky, the Department of Social Welfare objected to this tax package. So that's something we have to consider also. They said we're at the risk of increasing homelessness and hunger if we stick to the numbers the way they are.
Are you comfortable, sir, with putting a 3 peso excise tax on diesel?
It's a tricky proposition, I think, and we really have to look at that carefully. Maybe we can phase it out so that it's more manageable or more acceptable to the public. Because the argument naman of the government is that we've come from that regime already. We've come from a regime of high gasoline. There was a time when it was 40 pesos per liter. So ngayon nasa 30 na or something. So it's taxation. The devil's really in the details. You know, you really have to do all these meetings going forward. So there'll be some kind of raise, but maybe something more humane is called for.
So at least that's clear to me. You are for raising it, but not to this amount.
Yes,
not this
more
big
manageable.
of an amount.
Yes. Because you're talking about for diesel. Let's just look at gasoline, because excise tax on gasoline was 4 pesos, and they want to go to 10 pesos. That's already 150% increase. So if you're just thinking in percentage terms, medyo malaki, di ba? So And the reason why they have to do that is because they're giving away so much.
Yeah. Senator, here's the thing. Every time there's an increase in gas prices, we say it to the public, 50 cents increase, 35 cents, and then now...
You're going to say 6 peso increase,
all of a sudden, ganyang kalaki.
Yun
Hindi
nga.
ba nakakagulat talaga for the public?
Yes, I agree. And I was surprised when they proposed when they initially proposed it.
And there's a domino effect,
initial
as you
reaction.
mentioned.
Definitely the domino. Everyone knows there's that effect. That's why people watch fuel prices so carefully, so closely.
But they said that there would be a pantawid pasada and pantawid kuryente.
That's right. They're
Can
looking
that
at,
offset, sir, any increase?
Well, I think past governments tried it, no? And if you talk to the transport sector, they weren't too happy with the implementation. They said some drivers got it, not all drivers got it. So those are little things, and there's also questions about the ability to roll it out, because they said they would give subsidies to the poorest 20 million or 10 million families. And yung CCT, 3 million. It took us so many years to scale it up. So these things are very challenging, and we must look at the logistical requirements.
So you're not seeing a pantawid pasada or a pantawid kuryente as a viable option?
If it is an option, it is an option, but I think it needs to be firmed up in the law, because right now it's the language used is may. The government may give it. So if you're really going to raise prices, you have to be definite that you're going to give this subsidy.
You held hearings also on the sweetened beverage. So it's an increase of 10 pesos for every liter of sweetened beverage.
Yes.
And this refers to non-alcoholic beverage.
That's
sir.
right.
What study have you shared or learned from sweetened beverages abroad even? Is this a right amount? Hindi ho ba mataas?
Well, that's what we're studying, Pinky, because that would be 10 pesos per liter would, I think in the case of some beverages, be somewhere between 30 to 60 or 70%, in some cases 40, 50% of the price per liter.
Let's go for price, sir. 1 liter of
if
soda.
You look at soda, for example, I think the most common is Pepsi or Coke, no? So that I think the price in the sari-sari store is 20, in grocery it's 30. So if you're looking at the tax of 10 pesos per liter, that would go from, the price would go from 30 to 40 per litro. So medyo mabigat, di ba? So we're trying to see a best case, we're trying to study best practices abroad.
So it doesn't also look as if, sir, papayag kayo dun sa 10 pesos per liter. I mean, frankly, sir.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, even my senator colleagues were surprised, and one of my senator colleagues who comes from a sugar-producing region said, you know, you're going to kill the industry if you set it at this level. So maybe there'll be some kind of tempering along the road.
Okay, automotive industry, taxes on new cars, sir. It's known that in the Philippines, napakamahal po ng presyo ng mga bagong bilihin. Kotse. Although the DOF is saying that the Vios, hindi naman ganun kataas yung iaangat ng presyo. And the bigger ones, such as the really expensive cars, will be like from maybe 6 million, it will end up to 9 million, sir. Is that a okay table for you?
Well, it's still, I think it's still a moving target, because even the House amended it from 4 tiers, it became 5 tiers. The industry is now proposing 7 tiers. So we're looking at what's the sweet spot for taxing cars there. Some concerns to flag is what are the options available to people? Do you really want to price them out of buying cars? Because what is the state of our public transportation? Because if they don't have that option, then maybe you shouldn't tax the lower priced vehicles too much. But
maybe, or you shouldn't, because, sir, what I read was you were putting out a call for government to look into public transport and efficient public transport before even imposing taxes on new cars.
Or at least simultaneous. Like right now, if you're planning to put a tax next year, then something should be in place already for better public transport.
But, sir, is there?
Yeah, I think there is, to be fair. Might not please a lot of people, but there are extensions to the LRT, to the MRT, and that's going on. You're seeing the PNR extended to Tuban. So yun, meron naman talaga.
So the tax reform package, sir, when do you think your committee will be able to have to tackle this in the Senate as a whole?
Well, we're looking at September, wrapping up all our hearings, listening to all the public sectors who want to comment, and having the report. What happens is we report the bill out to plenary, Pinky, and then. But I expect very healthy and vigorous debate from the senators, because as you know, you've covered the Senate before. Senators are very opinionated and tend to have different opinions regarding taxation.
Absolutely. On a last note, sir, Manny Pacquiao, just thoughts on his his defeat.
Well, I'm biased because I'm Filipino, and secondly, Manny's my colleague and he's a good guy, But I'll just look at the ESPN stats. ESPN did a study of how many punches he landed versus Horn, and he almost doubled the punches of Horn. And if you look at Teddy Atlas, who covered the fight, he said you shouldn't win by effort alone. You should win by if you landed the punches. So I'll just leave it at that.
But what do you want to say to him? I mean, some people are, different people are saying, okay, it's time to retire. Who really?
Well, only Manny knows how far Manny
him.
can go. Only Manny knows how far. If he feels he should retire, then we'll support him, because then he can devote his time to public service. But if he feels he wants to go forward and he feels... I mean, I've played basketball with the guy. The guy doesn't get tired, Pinky. So I think if he says he can go another 2 years, I believe him. He can go another 2 years.
So to you, it's really up to Manny Pacquiao.
Definitely, and we'll support him whatever his decision. I mean, he's earned that, I think, at the very least.
Senator Angara, thank you again for guesting, and we hope to see you again once we have a more solid tax reform package coming from the Senate.
Sure, I'll be happy to come back. Pinky, thank you very much.
Thank you. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Coming up, Hello Kitty lovers out there, there is one place you wouldn't want to miss. Where is this newly opened Hello Kitty cafe in the country? That's for today's In Focus. And for today's In Focus. Are you a fan of Hello Kitty? Then get ready for this good news. The Philippines' first official cafe for the popular cartoon character just opened this weekend. Hello Kitty Cafe can be found in the Uptown Mall of Bonifacio Global City, and it's everything you expect from the famous Japanese bobtail cat. Everything is almost pink, from the walls to furniture. And Hello Kitty is everywhere in the menu, from the cakes, pasta to smoothies. The opening was also star-studded. Spotted were Sam Milby and his girlfriend Marie Jasmine, James Reed, Nadine Lustre, and Sam Concepcion. So, will you be visiting the Hello Kitty Cafe soon? Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.